Welcome to Rick on Life, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Media Project. I'm Rick Amitin, and this is where I like to talk about things that affect our daily lives. Today, I want to pose a question. Can't we all just get along? I don't know about you, but for me, 2018 has started with some kind of perfect discombobulation. Is it just me, or has heckling become the fastest growing industry in our country? When I look at the challenges that we face as a nation, I can't help but wonder, what is everybody thinking? If complaining is an admission, and I believe it is, that something better exists, then why aren't sound solutions showing up in our public discourse? Motive, it appears, becomes instrumental in understanding the intent of everybody's declared positions. And when diversity of opinions and ideas and expressions are criminalized, freedom is imprisoned in the heart. It appears to me that our country is becoming so divided, with each segment of division demanding that its position is elevated to supreme, with all those opposing being denied the very right to exist. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think this is problem solving. I think it's problematic. And it represents a backward spiral into remanufacturing the very absence of liberty that was addressed when this country was founded. This my way or the highway is an attitude that will always be met with resistance, and rightfully so. For a guy like me, who desires to live in peace not only within himself, but with everybody else, I'm finding it an increasingly difficult thing to do. I think finding resolve on important issues requires that we take the time to gather all the facts, to hear all the points of view, and to understand the points of view that are being offered on that particular issue. Because when thoughts and ideas are supercharged with emotion, that does not validate that idea or thought. Screaming in anger or in hate doesn't solicit sound reasoning, because it creates unsafe environments and invites defensive posturing and prohibits discussion. I rarely find temper tantrums virtuous. I certainly can't see them as an adult form of acceptable communication. It appears that we are currently growing a list of arguments in this country that are considered morally abhorrent. In many camps, you are seen as objectionable for even bringing up some points of view. Some thought cultures are too sensitive to even encounter opposing points of view without claiming they're violated or they've been made unsafe. So they object to claiming moral high ground to anyone who disagrees with their point of view. I don't see any greater threat to free speech than that. Well, I find it fascinating how people can look at the same set of facts, the same information, and come away with different conclusions. But I don't want to change that dynamic. I don't want to take away anyone's ability to decide things for themselves, because changing that dynamic fundamentally would change our country, and we would not be the nation that was founded to protect free speech, to pursue the ability to pursue liberty, or to have liberty and the freedom to pursue happiness. We couldn't be who we are if we continue down this course when all thoughts and ideas and opinions and expressions are forcibly conformed to some narrow way of thinking. Good problem solving for me generally requires that I search deeply for some just basic common sense. Let's tackle an age-old debate here. It's one that's been around for a long time, and I'm willing to make myself vulnerable for the sake of discussion here today, realizing that many people will certainly want to disagree with me on this particular issue. But abortion, for instance, has been debated in this country now for decades. If you turn on the TV and you listen to a lot of commentary today, you'd think we're hearing about it for the very first time. But I think you and I could put this issue to rest right here today, working together, using some acceptable reasoning ability to address the issue. Personally, I'm against abortion, with exception, of course, but I'm also for the woman's right to choose. I see this as only being a moral issue to the woman who's making the decision. For instance, I don't become a liar because somebody else tells a lie. I don't become a thief if somebody else steals. Nor do I become an abortionist when a woman decides to have an abortion. I also don't accept the argument that this is a woman's health issue. If a woman has the right to have the baby or to have an abortion, it can only ever be an elective procedure. Women demand here that we leave their uteruses alone. And I cannot begin to tell you how uninterested I am in your uterus. For me to fully comply with your demands and your wishes, that I completely avoid any involvement in your uterus, then I would say to you that you cannot force me to pay for your uterus decisions. Paying for your abortion involves me in your uterus. You don't want me involved in your uterus, and I don't want to be involved in your uterus. And so you and I can agree. It's your uterus, it's your right, and it's your expense. And can I remind us all here that the government does not make money? It takes money through taxation and fees. But in order for the government to give anything to anybody, they have to first take it from someone else. So again, it seems reasonable to me that it's your uterus. I respect that. It's your right to decide whether or not you're going to have an abortion. I respect that. It's also your expense. And I respect that. So you can make those decisions on your own and leave me completely out of it. See, there you go. Problem solved. See how easy that was? I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm not trying to be flippant. And I don't think I'm offering any magic bullet here today. Do I think that my summation covers all the fine print of everyone's concerns? Not at all. Of course not. Did my little short discourse offer a perfect solution? Not by any means. What I offered, though, was a compromise. One that I can live with, one that I can accept, and I can be satisfied to never have to talk about this again. But I do believe that the reason the issue remains, after all of these years, so politically contested, is that abortion isn't the real issue. Nor do I think it ever has been. I think it's a disguise. I think the real issue is about money, power, and control. These are the very same issues that are behind most, if not all, of our national disputes. In a nation of hundreds of millions of people, compromise is required for civility and peaceful coexistence. I'm not sure what's so hard to understand about this. It's such a discouraging thing to look at the important, critical, dire issues that affect so many of our lives, to think that we can't find resolve. It's almost like some people want the fight, that they wouldn't know what to do if they didn't have these things to rant and rave and argue and debate. This little discourse for me, the compromise that I offered concerning such a critical subject, did not include many of my personal convictions. I neither brought my faith or religion into it. It's one that I recognize is a decision that needs to be made peacefully. And what you do doesn't change me. What I do doesn't change you. But finding peaceful resolution to some of these issues, for me, is the way forward. It's the way of healing a country that has been so divided on so many levels. We're never going to all agree. We're not going to have only one way of seeing things and only one way of talking about things. We're not only going to have one prevailing philosophy. We're not going to have one right and one wrong when you have so many people involved. Bringing ourselves to a place of empathy and compassion and willingness to peacefully coexist, to me, is a mark of nobility. And I'm finding it sad that we can't do better than the way that we are currently being with each other. And I'm encouraged because I know that potentially, when we all are willing to dig deep, to understand that we're going to have these differences, but the differences don't have to result in division. There was a set of documents that created the framework for this great nation of ours. Unfortunately, I think we have moved so far away from these documents that protected each of us and all of us. And they've been twisted and ignored and violated until we're sort of facing a time when, does anybody really feel secure and safe? Is that really the ambition? Is that the goal? Do we really want people to live in fear? I think these great number of issues that are confronting us today require us to apply a different approach. We can keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to have the same result. This bickering, this division, this harsh bitterness across all segments of society, people not being able to get along, people getting elevated to heighten emotions, and we're losing our dignity. I know we can do better. I know we can. But I can't have everything my way. And I would hope that you would understand that you can't have everything your way. And that compromise is an asset to us here. It's not a liability. We can't have some national conformity to individual ideas, beliefs, and opinions. What we can have is national respect for our differences. What we can have here is a countrywide movement that brings us back to a place of civility, where we know how to fight for what we love, what we believe in, what's important to us, but where we understand that we're not here by ourselves, that we are surrounded with people, millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, who have their own way of thinking about a lot of these issues. Our country is substantial enough to tolerate all of these differing views without rioting in the streets. We should not have to tear one another down to feel complete ourselves. I know how far we have come from our founding documents, and it's somewhat discouraging to me, sad to me, because so many things were good and right and appropriate when we founded this great country. And I realize that we're a long ways down the road today from where we were at the time that these documents were written. And I know that there was no way to look down the road and see every situation that was ever going to arise and to address it perfectly and completely in those original documents. But the fundamentals in our founding documents were there to protect us all, to provide opportunity for us all, to foster protection for us all. And we just keep acting as though we don't have any boundaries, that there are no guidelines to keep us safely passing one another on the highways of life. And I understand the difficulties that we have, but I do believe that we also have the capacity. I believe we have the heart. I believe we have the intellect and the empathy to change the environment that we are all forced to live in at this present moment. I don't know about you, but I don't want to drive on a highway where there are no lines and signs. I can't imagine the free-for-all and the accidents and the devastation and even the death and destruction that would happen in so many of our intersections if there weren't traffic lights to regulate when people stopped and when they can go. And life, that's just a metaphor for really the life that we're all living. And to live in a world with other people, we have to be mindful of how to travel the roads of life safely together. So I would say we can all get along. What will it take? What will it take for us to all get along? As we all search our hearts and we all look for remedies, we all look for solutions, can we really offer something that works for all of us? Or are we going to continue to battle for these little pieces of territory, ideas, opinions? Are we going to continue this discourse that we're engaging in right now, or are we going to decide that we want to make things better and then set out to do that very thing? Well, hey, have you heard? Subway has a spicy Italian footlong on sale for $4.99. I like mine with extra pepperoncinis. Thanks for being here. And remember, whatever's going on in your world, just sprinkle a little love on it. You might make a new friend. I'm Rick Amitin, and I'll see you next time.